At Pencilpoint Theatreworks, we believe in the power of story to connect us as humans. I was going to say at this particular time, but it's possible that throughout time, our differences as people are accented, and they can be heightened, and they can become a source of great friction. And sometimes we need reminding that our similarities, while they may not be as easy to find, are worth discovering. And that can happen through story. My story of loss reflects your story of loss. My story of struggle may mirror yours. My story of love may connect with yours. Despite our differences and despite our different backgrounds and all that, stories can show us that we have connections and understandings that we should and need to appreciate. So that's what we believe. And this evening, thank you. Thank you. I don't know, thank you. Enjoy the veal, tip your wings. But no, I do. But I do. We really believe that. And so this evening is less entertainment and more about this word sharing, revealing, and trying to connect. We will have 6 storytellers. We will do them in pairs of 2. And in between the pairings, we will have a musical interlude by Pat Grimes. After the first interlude, we'll probably take like a 5-10 minute break or intermission for you to find the restroom and maybe refresh your drink or stretch, and then we'll get back into the last part of the program. If at the end of the evening, we tend to, this is our 5th one, by the way. This is actually our year anniversary. We've been doing it. So we tend to continue doing them every 3 months or so. And so if at the end of the evening you feel compelled or even just curious at the idea of maybe sharing a story of your own, our email is on the back of the program, or you can talk to me afterwards. Because I would love to hear it. I want to hear it. So don't be afraid. Some of these people were, and they're going to do it anyway. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our first 2 storytellers. Our first storyteller is Lyn Davidge, and she's going to be telling a story about her grandfather's side business. And our second storyteller will be Jerry LeBeau, and he's going to tell us a story about his experience as a grandfather. All right, so here's Lyn.
Meet George Sutton, my maternal grandfather. On Christmas Day, 1956, he must have seen us pull into his driveway because he was right out the door and down the walk to greet us. And he was dressed most appropriately for the middle of the last century, for the biggest, most festive family gathering of the year. He had on a suit and tie, as did my dad, as did all the other men who were present that day. But Grandpa was the only one who accessorized with a blue plaid cap. My mother took one look at him and just broke up. And she insisted that we take his picture right away. Now, at the time, I was a young teenager, beginning to realize just how embarrassing adults can be. And so, between the hysterically laughing mother and the silly hat on the grandfather, I kind of just withdrew. If he explained the hat, I have no idea what he said. I do not know the story of that hat on that particular day. But I think I can tell you that probably Grandpa got out the door without Grandma seeing him, because my grandma really liked to run the show, and she was especially good at running Grandpa. And I think she would not have approved of the hat. Well, we got the pictures developed after Christmas. We enjoyed looking at them. We shared this one especially with the family. And you know how it is. Over the years, you pull out your pictures, or back in those days, it was slides. And you look and you think, oh yeah, that was Christmas 1956 when Grandpa showed up with a hat. Well, it took me a very long time to realize the importance of that hat in that picture. And because when I was originally seeing Grandpa for the first time wearing it, when I was looking at the pictures afterwards, through my teens, through my early adulthood, well into my middle agehood, I saw in this picture just a guy who was Grandpa. I had known him all my life. And he had changed a bit. He was a solid, hard-working, honest man who spent decades on the line assembling Buicks in Flint. He was a quiet, soft-spoken man who tended to sit off in his favorite chair in the far corner of the living room watching the world go by, occasionally interjecting something like, golly, or yup. Although he did sometimes turn around and shoot me, make a face when Grandma started to run him. But I thought of my grandpa as just Grandpa, an ordinary Joe, maybe even a little boring. But I was wrong about that. I should have even realized it, at least somewhat at the time, because my grandpa was an entrepreneur. My grandpa was a famous entrepreneur. My grandpa was well known and respected throughout the Midwestern United States for the excellence and the effectiveness of the rat poison that he made in his basement. When I was a little girl, I liked almost nothing more than going downstairs with Grandpa to watch. Grandpa worked at a beat-up old wooden kitchen table at the foot of the stairs, and he had me sit maybe halfway up, high enough so that I could see everything that Grandpa was doing, and we were on each other's eye level. We could sort of talk together as equals. But of course, I was also high enough that I was safely out of the way of the rat poison. Grandpa worked really fast, and he started with a stack of wax paper squares. They were, 2, 3 inches square. And before I knew it, he had dealt those squares out, and the whole tabletop was covered with wax paper in nice, neat rows. And then, because Grandpa mixed his poison in assorted boxes that he stored open around the basement, he would pick up the nearest one, hold it in the crook of his arm. There was a silver spoon sticking out from the mound of rat poison, and I know it was really silver because it was all black with tarnish. I've sometimes wondered if my grandma realized that she had provided a tool of the trade for Grandpa's business from the silver chest that was kept in the dining room. Grandma didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the rat poison business, so I'm guessing maybe she did not know. But anyway, Grandpa used that spoon to spoon out a heaping spoonful and plop it into each one of those wax paper squares. Spoon plop, spoon plop, spoon plop. And when he got popping really good, those little particles of rat poison would rise up in the air, and they would drift on the air currents over to my nose. And I'm here to tell you that Grandpa's rat poison smelled so good. Those little mounds of rat poison on those wax paper squares looked and smelled just like Swiss Miss. Only, this was a very long time ago, and I'm not sure Swiss Miss had been invented yet. Anyway, I learned quickly not to say too much to Grandpa about the deliciousness of his poison, because then I would get the lecture. Lyn, of course it smells good. That's to fool the rats. They like chocolate and sugar just as much as you do. But they're not as smart as you, and you must remember that that chocolatey goodness lures them in, and they don't notice that there's a funny smell mixed in there, and when they nibble at the poison, they don't notice under the chocolate that there's something kind of bitter. No, Lyn, there's bad stuff in here, and you must promise me never, ever to taste the rat poison. Well, I have to admit I was awfully tempted, but I never did. Grandpa's next step was packaging the poison. He would wrap the powder up in each one of those wax papers and twist the ends real tight, making what he called pellets. And about 15 or 20 pellets were dumped into envelopes they were the vertical kind of envelope, open at the narrow end on top. And then they got stapled, overhanging one another to big pieces of cardboard. I'd say probably 24 packets on each one of those big pieces of cardboard. The finished product he called a card. And the cards were printed with Grandpa's brand name, Excello Rodent Killer, in bold black letters, and underneath a big red skull and crossbones, and the word poison in even bigger, bolder red letters, and then a list of all the critters that this stuff would kill: the rats, the mice, the squirrels, the chipmunks, the moles, the bunny rabbits, whatever might count as a rodent. When Grandpa had enough of the cards to fill the trunk of his Buick, he took off on selling trips. Grandpa had loyal, regular customers in at least 5 states. Once in a while he ventured a little farther east to Pennsylvania or a little farther west to Iowa. And he would stop in rural communities, places where farmers would come to not only shoot the breeze and socialize with each other, but pick up supplies. And Grandpa, the store owners were always very glad to see Grandpa coming, because they could buy as many of his big cards as they wanted. They could prop them up on the counter next to the cash register, and the customers would come and grab the packets that they might want, you know, as many as they needed, and the profit, of course, was in selling them by the packet. It was kind of like picking up a Snickers bar in the line of covers. Well, when the business was over, Grandpa would stay and schmooze for a while with whoever happened to be in the store. Everybody loved talking to Grandpa. He knew what he was talking about, because Grandpa had been a farmer, and he had owned a grain mill at one point in his life. He could advise about rodents and poison, and he knew how to commiserate with the various agricultural problems that had cropped up, and he just had a great old time. Well, Grandpa made rat poison all through his life, as long as I knew him. And when he could no longer drive as his health failed, when he had to stop personally delivering to his customers, they came to him, because Grandpa's rat poison was simply the best around, or they would put in mail order requests. When Grandpa died, I think there were probably about maybe 3 Buick trunks full of cards, all made up and waiting for the final customers. I was 25 when Grandpa died. I was all grown up, or at least I thought I was. And I had never, ever tired of going downstairs with him to watch him do his rat poison thing. It took me a long time to realize just how, or just why exactly, this particular memory was so vivid and so strong and so fond in my mind. And it kind of goes back, at least partially, to Grandma. Grandma liked to run the show. She liked to run Grandpa, and when I was with them on overnights or whatever, she ran me. Kept me entertained. Now, please don't misunderstand. She was a wonderful grandma, and I loved her dearly. But it meant that Grandpa and I never had a whole lot of quality time together, just the two of us, just Grandpa and granddaughter. And so the times that we did have, where we snatched moments here and there, were almost all rat poison moments. And I just cherished their memory. And now, decades later, I realize when I look at this picture that I am not looking at an ordinary Joe. I am looking at somebody who's more like Joe Cool. There he is. Happy that the family is assembling. He's got his hands in his pockets. He's all relaxed and smiling. A man who is confident enough to put on a silly hat with his Sunday best suit. A man who is proud enough to put his name in front of his house. How many people do you know do that? And this is on a pretty busy road in Flint, Michigan. Grandpa was a special guy. He was his own name. And now this picture represents to me that other Grandpa that I wish I had known better.